Okay, hi everyone. So I'm here with Martin Wielemaker from UNB, and we're just doing a little bit of an experiment. We got a sample exam type question from an undergraduate economics class, and we're going to be asking a Course Hero tutor the question. We're going to see how quickly we can get an answer. So there's the question. I'll even make it look like it's a possible exam question by including the two as a bullet point. And I'll enter the subject, and in this case, it's economics. And let's see what the process is of getting an answer. Okay, well, we want to earn an extra tutor question, and in doing so, we let the students at the university know where the question is pertinent. So we'll tell them it's Simon Fraser University, and then we'll tell them that it came from Business Economics, Business 207. So now when people look for information, oh, and even the term. So not only, this is really quite interesting and kind of scary, not only do they answer the question, but they answer the question in such a way that it's tagged for a particular course at a particular time. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, very customer friendly. Very nice.
And for that reason, we seem to have an extra question. So
our average answer time for economics questions is 50 minutes.
Well, I'll tell you that tutors are reviewing the question. When I tried a strategy question over the weekend, what I found was that it took maybe 20 minutes till a tutor was even starting to review the question. But now there seems to be tutors that are already working or reviewing the question.
Yeah. So I mean, the good news about this is it's not instantaneous. Unless there would be a premium product you'd be paying for that you get instantaneous answers.
Well, there is a product where you have tutoring sessions that are done entirely via chat.
Aha. So you could schedule that to happen right during your exam.
You could schedule that to be done during the exam period. And particularly, this is dangerous when you're talking about students being able to schedule the exam whenever they want. I guess some universities are telling instructors to create 24-hour windows for students to complete exams in. And that, of course, helps students who might be located in different time zones. But of course, it makes it easier to perhaps abuse services such as this.
Yeah, and if your exam is, I don't know, you have 3 hours to complete the exam, you just upload all your questions at the start, boom, you have all the answers before the exam is finished, and you just copy paste them or modify them, so you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is kind of scary.
Right.
The other thing would be interesting to see is, what are the database of questions that they have for that particular class that you tagged it to? But I guess we don't get to see that with a sample question here.
I guess if I had a paid account rather than just a trial account, I would be able to likely
go in
and also see what they have in terms of other materials.
So if you went to the Find Study Resources on the left there, would you be able to type in that course, for example, the one you tagged?
Yeah, I mean, if you go to Course Hero and if you look by institution, then you look by faculty, and then you go by course, and then you bring up all the materials associated with that course. They're tagged that way. And I guess
Yeah.
this question will be tagged as Business 207 at Simon Fraser University as well. But there's also the course outlines. There's
Yeah. So here's one of the
PowerPoint
issues.
slides, past exams, things like that are loaded.
So if you just go through the public portal, you can see that there's stuff there, but it's blurred out, right? So you can't even check
Exactly.
whether someone has illegally posted your IP.
That's right.
Where
It becomes difficult. So I mean, perhaps best practice would involve maybe universities having some accounts that could be shared by instructors, so they could go on and look and see what material is already there.
exactly. Yeah.
I know.
I mean, it's a whole. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Martin.
I mean, it's a whole discussion about whether or not you can, as a university, the police has the same thing. Are they allowed to disguise themselves for the greater good of detecting stuff in lying about their background? Can universities do that? Is that ethically okay? I think it is. How else are we going to find out what IP is in there and what's going on? There's no other way to do it but to go in there, and to go in there, you have to kind of disguise yourself as a supposed student.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I know I've spoken to some colleagues who are interested in sort of messing with the credibility of sites such as this by uploading incorrect answers.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Right? Yeah, I'm not sure.
Well,
I mean, it increases the perceived risk on the part of students who might want to misuse this. I mean, we should also say that the site and these services can be used for perfectly legitimate reasons as
yeah,
well.
that's
Right?
just what I was thinking. That's the problem. You can't say that the site is completely illegitimate. There's stuff out there that's perfectly fine. Students could be sharing their own notes, right? For example.
I guess the issue is that there's not very many. Apparently, there don't seem to be many safeguards in place to protect students from abusing this to perhaps engage in some form of academic dishonesty.
Yeah, and they may go in for perfectly legitimate reasons. They may just have a question, that is not asking for a direct answer to a question, but they want help with something. And this is one of the sites where you get help.
Yeah, it's interesting, but what belies that is that the tutor isn't really going to be teaching me how to answer the question. Is just going to be providing me with an answer.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see. Yeah, are they going to provide directions on how I could go about tackling a problem like this, or are they just going to give me the answer?
I believe they're just going to give me the answer, and of course that could be a study aid as well. I mean, a question like this that I ask a tutor on Course Hero doesn't necessarily have to be an exam question.
Yeah.
It could be an ungraded homework assignment. It could be just me working on an assignment, not an assignment, or a set of questions that I want to practice on. So it's.
But of course, if you're Course Hero, you don't know what it's for. So, and you know as Course Hero that this could potentially be used just to get answers to exam questions or homework that they're supposed to do on their own.
That's right.
So to claim that they don't know, it seems a rather, they're not even asking what kind of help is needed, for what purpose.
They're not giving any warning. They're not giving any disclaimers. The tutor isn't contacting me and even asking me where this question came from.
Are you okay with us helping the student?
Well, I mean.
Yeah, there are no safeguards in place.
By the way, I mean, while we've been talking, we see that the assembly line has progressed a little bit further. For the last couple of minutes, the tutor has been working on our answer.
Yeah, I see at the top, there's 3 check marks. It's found. The first one was question received. The second one was finding a tutor. Number 3, tutors are reviewing your question. And right now, your tutor is working on your answer. That's pretty fast.
It's pretty fast. I mean, what have we been? I guess we've been waiting maybe about 10 minutes, maybe less even.
Yeah, I
And,
would think it's less.
and
Yeah.
I would guess we would have an answer in the next couple of minutes.
Yeah. The question is how good's the answer going to be too? That's the other thing, right?
So let's see what the answer looks like. And how long did it take? Do you know? Probably we got
Honest.
an answer in about 15 minutes.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, wow. This is pretty cool.
Holy macaroni.
Wow.
That's unbelievable.
Pretty
Now,
good, eh?
yeah, completely worked out.
This is
And did he and he used the same variables that you gave in the question. Is that right? Do you remember? It's
yeah,
not a generic answer here.
that's pretty good.
This is scary. And you can imagine the student just forwarding on that picture right away. Just copy, save that picture. Can you save that? So that picture, can you right click it and see if you can copy it? Save as? Yeah. Right. So this means that you're forwarding it to the instructors, but students can forward this to their classmates and friends.
That's right.
Okay, so hi everyone. We're back a couple days later, and we got some feedback from the instructor who shared the exam question with us and got her feedback.
Wow. So is that the feedback she gave? That's what we're looking at?
Yeah, that's what she said. That's so scary. I would say it's a perfect answer with very standard solutions. So
Wow.
not only was a student able to get an answer in about 12 to 15 minutes, but it was tagged to a very specific course at a particular institution at a particular time, and it was a perfect answer or a near perfect answer. And it was presented in such a way that it could be made easily accessible, not only to that student, but for other students as well. Either,
And
either on the website or simply by the student in question just downloading the file as a JPEG and sharing it with their friends.
I mean, the fact that it's really good quality, that says something, I mean, and not just that the answer is good, it's the entire process of arriving at the answer has been described. Right? So all the intermediate steps are there. This would be what a teacher would be looking for, is the entire thing.
That's right.
But of course, the flip side is if the student isn't really honest and is just submitting an exam question, there you have the exam question entirely worked out for you completely from beginning to end, perfectly. And it was in 12 minutes. In most take-home exams or exams that you do online at home are longer than 12 minutes. So you could just post all your questions at the start.
That's right. It's
Very scary.
It is very scary, and I think it's certainly a cause for concern. So let me ask you, Martin, now that we know that this sort of possibility exists, there's the opportunity for students to abuse sites like Course Hero to help them possibly cheat on exams. What could you do to mitigate that from the perspective of an instructor?
Geez. Yeah. Good question. What could we do about that? Well, you asked other questions that they were kind of unable to answer within the time frame. So, I mean, open-ended questions that
wasn't in, we didn't video record that, but we did ask some other questions that were a bit more qualitative.
Yeah.
And the tutors, I think I asked a couple questions that way that were more qualitative. And in one case, we weren't able to even find a tutor who was willing to take up the task of trying to answer the question.
Yeah, because it comes at a cost to the tutors. They want to get a question answered quickly. So if they have to read through an entire epistle or a complicated question that doesn't have clear variables that you can quickly sort of write out if and you have the expertise, then that's a problem. So that would be one way to do it, is to frame more open-ended questions where the question can not quickly be distilled into variables.
Well, and where there's sort of a non-standard qualitative solution. right? That requires that students maybe have some background.
Yeah.
And maybe that background is tied to specific things that happen in the class. But of course, that doesn't prevent the situation where perhaps a student is just sitting in for somebody setting in for a student for the entire class and has attended those class sessions as well.
Oh yeah, that would not deal with that situation.
But that's not a problem with Course Hero, because that's not a service that they offer. But there are some websites that will offer that service for students.
It'd be nice to see if Course Hero would take a direction where they truly were concerned about. I mean, I think it's fantastic that they're opening up their site for educators to go in and take a look. I think that's really good of them. But it would be really nice if they came up with a method to really safeguard that it's properly used, their site. Because I think if you were a student and you had a legitimate question that wasn't about just getting an answer for an exam, the fact that you can get quality answers, it's a great service they are providing.
Yes, I mean, absolutely. On the other hand, the question is, why wouldn't a student ask that question of their professor or one of the teaching assistants assigned to the class? Why would they need to go to a site like Course Hero to get an answer?
Well, I could see some answers to that. I mean, perhaps they've waited too long, they've procrastinated, and they feel uncomfortable asking things that they should have known or should have asked before or should have asked during the office hours. So here they can get an answer at 1 o'clock at night,
Mm-hmm.
So these are sort of a service that we don't really provide at a university. But I do think you're right. I mean, a site like this, it could really improve the way they ensure that there's no misuse happening of the site.
I mean, does it suggest that some students don't feel comfortable talking to their professors or teaching assistants for some reason, or that some students may not feel that their professors or teaching assistants are accessible to them to answer questions? Because, I mean, why would you pay somebody to answer a question when you're not entirely sure about the quality of the answer? So if you're going to be asking the professor, the person who's asked you the question, and you're getting feedback from them or suggestions from them, you're getting things from an authoritative voice. On the other hand, when you go into Course Hero, in this case, we got a really excellent question, but it's very much dependent upon the quality of the tutor. And regardless of what you think about sites like Course Hero, I don't think they go through the vetting and the hiring process that universities do when they decide who to put in front of classes. Right? I mean,
yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, that's true. It really depends on the quality of the tutor. But why is it that they go there? Well, two reasons. One could be because they know that they're not supposed to ask their professor for the answer to a question they should come up with themselves. And so they can go here and ask the question that they know they're not allowed to ask.
Yeah.
But that's obviously one reason.
Might be also, as you pointed out, it might also be just a matter of convenience.
Yeah, exactly. I waited too long. I'm embarrassed to go ask my prof, so I can go and ask online at 2 p.m., or 2 a.m., I should say. Yeah.
So what else do you think instructors could do? So one of the things we found out was that perhaps non-standard solutions that have qualitative elements are more difficult for tutors to respond to.
Yeah. The other thing I think you said was referring back to things that were discussed in class. It would be hard for a tutor to know.
Mm-hmm.
So certain concepts, or cases that were discussed, stuff like that. That also makes it harder.
It might also help if teachers were a bit more flexible on deadlines so that people didn't have to go last minute to these sites for help. There is some research that suggests that teachers might cut back on some of the academic integrity issues they face by being a little bit more flexible about deadlines. So that's another thing. And just more generally by being available to students and making sure that students can approach them when they have issues and questions so they don't have to go to sites like this in the first place.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, those are very good points, especially the one about the deadlines. We're so used to setting deadlines. And you often hear the argument, well, in real life, they have deadlines too. They got to learn to work with deadlines. But that's not entirely true. In real life, you can say to somebody, listen, I need another day. Can let's move our meeting to a day later,
Yes.
So the argument that in real life, deadlines are hard deadlines, that's not entirely true. Because people on the other end know they want quality. If there's an extra day needed and they get good quality, they'll be happy to do it.
Yeah.
And it's no different here, right? If you know that the extra day will ensure the fact that it's the student doing the work, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the other thing that I was thinking about is a lot of times people are suggesting continuous assessment and shuffling of questions and using very similar questions, but with different parameters, and then randomizing them. So, I mean, in this particular instance, in this sort of question, you could very simply change one of the decision parameters ever so slightly and then have a completely different answer, so that the answer supplied by the tutor wouldn't be much help, right? Unless the person understood the process by which the tutor arrived at it. And if the wording were changed very subtly, so it was just one parameter that was changed in a very subtle way, it might not be immediately observable to the student who just copied and pasted an answer, and they'd be posting the right answer to the wrong question.
Yeah, so now you're talking about other students seeing the answer to a question.
Yeah, well,
because if you change something in the question, you could still post that question to the tutor who could still answer it correctly.
But what would happen if I set things up in an online testing program so that there's 5 equivalent questions and is randomized? And each of the 5 questions at first glance look exactly the same, but just have very subtle differences, which mean that the answers have to be different. So, a student doing this online in a time setting might not distinguish between the different versions of the question, and they'll be getting one version, an answer to one version of the question from a tutor, and then might be sharing it with other people who might have very similar but subtly different questions to answer.
Yeah. So that works for when they share the answer.
That's right.
But there's a subtle difference in the answer. So you make the questions look alike enough that they assume it's the same, but it's not. So if they were doing something inappropriate by looking at shared answers, they would get the wrong answer.
Yeah, I mean, it also suggests that, people who are convinced that, making things open book and open note, right, as a way of preventing cheating, are leaving themselves exposed or leaving the integrity of their assessment exposed to problems such as this. Because if I was asking students to answer a set of questions in a quiz online during a time window, right? With not an aggressive timer, but just an appropriate timer, so that students have enough time to think about the answer, but not enough time to consult other people with the answer. So for instance, if I had 10 of these questions and they needed to be answered in 45 minutes, or I design a test that has 10 questions that can be answered in 45 minutes, and I don't give people more than 45 minutes, it might be very difficult to coordinate answers to all those questions and get them in time, especially if you have to distinguish those questions from subtly different questions that other people might be getting.
Yeah, although my son took an online course, I'm not going to mention which one, and it was under very tight time limits. And I have to say that, the only way you could do the exam if you didn't make an error. So if you made an error and you just went down the wrong way and you discovered at the end, oh, I did something wrong, you have to go back. There's no time to redo it. So, from that experience that he told me about, I'm a bit worried when people start putting really tight time constraints. Someone may know something and you have an error and then you need to go back and there's no time to fix it. The grade is not really a true reflection of how well you know your stuff. So
Yeah,
I would be mindful about the time limit component.
I think that that's an excellent observation. I think the trick is, to give people enough time to answer the question, but not too much time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I agree. If it's too much time, then they can go anywhere they want to get answer to their questions.
Right. So I don't know how you would do that conceptually, but you'd figure out how much time an average student might take to answer the quiz or the test, and then tack on an appropriate extra time just in case things happen. But you wouldn't say, here's 24 hours. You got to answer these questions anytime within 24 hours.
Yeah,
because that just leaves open too many opportunities for people to not only share answers, but to go online and get answers from tutors to their specific questions.
Absolutely. Now you raise another interesting thing, which was about the open book. So you would think that if someone gives an open book exam, I've given open book exams myself, for example, you would frame the question in such a way that it is hard to find the answer. So there are more questions that don't specifically refer to words that you could instantly look up. They would be phrased in such a way that it's harder. You got to know your stuff to be able to answer it. So yeah, I mean, there can be tutors that would be able to answer those questions, but there's less hints for the tutor where to look up the answers themselves too.
Yeah, I don't know about hard to find answers or questions with hard to find answers, but questions that require judgment and assessment rather than simply answers, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Right? Those would be difficult.
And the other thing you could do is there was perhaps particular techniques you used in class, to come at a solution. So you might actually refer to that technique. And it could be that a tutor doesn't know that technique and may know the answer, may know how to get to the answer, but may not know that particular technique.
Well, they might use a different technique, right? I mean, yeah. In the case of an economics class, there might be solutions using linear algebra versus solutions using calculus. And it could very well be that you're teaching a class where people don't have a calculus background, maybe at a high school, for instance, doing an economics class, and then somebody's using sophisticated calculus. That would probably be cause for concern, right?
Yep.
So sometimes the approach being used is could be a telltale sign that something's worth investigating.
Yeah. The thing is, Joe, though, that there's so many instructors that don't even do the minimum, simple things to do. And you cannot stop inappropriate behavior completely. That's just impossible. But just coming in with some simple solutions that would solve this or reduce it at minimum, that's, I think, a key way to go. Like we saw how hard it was for the tutors to answer some of the more open-ended questions. Mm-hmm. It gives you a good idea of how you could make it harder for these kind of services to be misused by students.
Yeah. I guess your last comment underscores, my belief that dealing with academic integrity appropriately is a shared responsibility. And it's not very helpful for teachers to simply blame students and administrators to simply place blame on instructors and students, and for students to simply blame instructors and administrators for various things. I think it's important to ask and expect individuals to take their share of responsibility for solving the problem. Right? So
could not agree more. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, students have a responsibility. They shouldn't be asking questions that are on an exam to a site like this. Educators have a responsibility. They should ensure that the questions don't make it so super easy to do this kind of stuff. And administrators should be educating and making sure there's a proper culture of academic integrity.
And helping to provide appropriate support for instructors and students so that they're not tempted to do things that are less than great with respect to academic integrity. I picked my words very carefully there. Less than great.
Yeah.
No, I mean, if students are having issues with not having the necessary skills to complete things, and administrators have decided to admit them, I think we should also be providing programs to support them so that students have the skills and the knowledge necessary to succeed without engaging in academic dishonesty. Right?
Yeah,
And,
yeah. They're not just you know, they're not just dollar bills. They're people who sign up for a learning trajectory, and part of the learning is that we also help them when they stumble.
That's right. And as far as support for instructors is concerned, instructors quite often have competing demands for their times, particularly if they're teaching in publish or parish institutions. And it becomes very difficult when people have to spend a lot of time managing academic integrity issues without a whole lot of support.
Yeah, I mean, we were recently at a webinar and someone was saying they had a class, I believe it was 600. And so you can just imagine if you had 50 students, let's say, you know, the amount of hours you have to spend on dealing with handling an academic dishonesty issue is enormous. So I completely agree with you. And that would come at a cost to the instructor focusing on improving the learning experience for the student and on their own research.
When you have a system that depends on instructors who, even if they are well-intentioned, might not have the time necessary to pursue multiple cases, and you have administrative support people who are, again, well-intentioned, but have a bunch of other responsibilities that in their minds might have equal or even higher priority, then you have situations where you might run into issues with academic integrity being widespread at an institution. And I think that's certainly an area of concern as well.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate that sometimes you need problems for things to be fixed. Like in Australia, they really fixed a lot of issues after there was a major scandal. Mm-hmm. And it's just too bad that it almost seems that something like that has to happen here before something really more drastic is going to be done about it.
So how should we sum up our experience with Course Hero and the situation with regard to students getting quote unquote tutoring advice almost in real time?
Teachers should know that these kind of services exist. They should understand how fast and the potential quality that some of these answers can have, and that students are able to just submit all their questions at the start of the exam and get answers in 15 minutes, way before the exam is done.
Yeah.
And that understanding amongst faculty is key for anything to change.
I think that understanding and awareness is incredibly important, because you don't identify anything that you're not looking for. So now that more people are aware that these services exist, that awareness can be translated into actions and decisions on the part of instructors. But if people don't know that these things exist, they're not looking for them, and they're not designing their assessments to deal with problems or potential problems such as this. So I think that that's why it's important for people to share experiences and to help other instructors and administrators and students know what's out there and what could be done about it. Yeah. Because then it's truly a collective discussion, and it ends up being a collective responsibility. I know there are some people who make the argument that we shouldn't be talking about these things because it provides guidance to students and other people who might want to avail themselves of services such as this. But I don't think that that's much of a risk, because as we've looked at in other places, you've got a very aggressive industry out there marketing their services in a variety of very in-your-face ways using social media. So it's unclear how many students aren't aware of the possibility of using services such as this. I don't think it's a secret.
No, I think a student would have to be pretty much disconnected from the online world not to know about it.
Well, and the thing is, many of them are likely to be surprised by the fact that instructors and administrators also know about them, and that understanding might have an effect on them as well.
Yeah.
I kind of think that sometimes young people and students think that educators and administrators are not very aware, and they could take advantage of that lack of awareness.
Yeah.
So hopefully videos such as this will help raise that awareness so that students don't have that expectation when they cheat, and so that instructors and administrators know what are some of the many possibilities out there for academic dishonesty, and they can do things about it, such as simply having a discussion with students and telling them that they know about these options and they know about these temptations and why they think that students should elect not to take advantage of these services.
Yeah.